You're gonna rot here. That's what my own son, my flesh and blood, snarled at me as he slammed the door shut, the deadbolt clicking into place with a chilling finality. He had locked me in my own house, a prisoner in my own home, without a morsel of food, and then he just went on vacation. Can you believe it? My son, the boy I raised, sacrificed everything for, left me to starve. Tell me, would you have ever imagined such a betrayal from your own child? Was I wrong for what I did to him later, after all of that? I need to know if I'm crazy for seeking the justice I did, or if anyone out there would have done the exact same thing. It all started so subtly, so innocently, that I barely even noticed the shift. My son, Mark, had always been a bit entitled. Even as a child, he expected things to be handed to him, and I, foolishly, often obliged. I was a single mother. His father left us when Mark was barely 5, and I poured all my love, all my energy, and frankly, all my money into raising him. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, just to make sure he had everything he wanted. The latest video games, the trendiest clothes, a good education, you name it. I made it happen. I believed I was giving him a good life, a better life than I had, but looking back, I realize I was just paving the road for his monstrous ingratitude. When Mark got older, the entitlement only grew. He never really bothered to find a stable job, always bouncing from one part-time gig to another, complaining about how unfair the world was, how he deserved more. He lived at home, of course, and I never charged him rent. He's my son. I'd tell my friends, he's just trying to find his way. My friends, bless their hearts, would nod sympathetically, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. They saw what I refused to see. I was enabling him. Then came Sarah. Mark met Sarah online, and within a few months, they were inseparable. Sarah seemed sweet at first, a bit quiet, but I was just happy to see Mark happy, finally making an effort with someone. They decided to get married, and I, naturally, offered to help with the wedding expenses. It wasn't cheap, but I wanted my son to have a beautiful day. I dipped into my retirement savings, something I swore I'd never do, but Mark promised he'd pay me back eventually. A promise I've since learned he had no intention of keeping. After the wedding, they moved into a small apartment nearby. I thought, finally, he's growing up, he's becoming independent, but that illusion shattered quickly. Within 6 months, they were back, claiming their landlord had raised the rent exorbitantly. Of course, they moved back into my house. And of course, I didn't charge them rent. Again, the promises flowed they'd save up, they'd find a new place, they'd contribute to the household. The promises were as empty as my pantry would soon become. Life with Mark and Sarah under my roof was difficult. They were messy, loud, and demanding. They treated my home like a hotel, expecting meals to be cooked, laundry to be done, and for me to just fade into the background. I tried to talk to Mark, gently at first. "Honey, could you perhaps help with the dishes tonight?" I'd ask. He'd grunt, "Later, Mom," and then disappear into his room to play video games. Sarah was even worse. She'd just stare blankly at me, as if I was speaking a foreign language. The finances became a huge issue. Mark still wasn't working consistently, and Sarah had some vague online business that seemed to consist mostly of scrolling through social media. My pension, which was modest to begin with, was stretched thinner and thinner. I started cutting back on my own expenses, buying cheaper groceries, delaying necessary repairs around the house. I even started skipping meals some days just to make sure they had enough. I tried explaining this to Mark, telling him we needed to be more careful, that they needed to contribute. He just laughed. "Mom, you always worry too much. We'll be fine." Then came the vacation plan. Sarah had been talking about going to a tropical island for months, posting dreamy pictures on social media. I thought it was just a fantasy, something they couldn't possibly afford. But then Mark came to me, beaming, saying they had booked a 2-week trip. My heart sank. Mark, how? We barely have enough for groceries this week. He waved his hand dismissively. Don't worry about it, Mom. We've got it covered. He then had the audacity to ask me for money to buy new clothes for the trip. I refused. I simply couldn't, not anymore. My savings were depleted, and my pension barely covered the bills. That's when the atmosphere in the house changed. Mark became cold, distant, and angry. Sarah stopped speaking to me altogether. They started whispering, giving me dirty looks. I felt like an intruder in my own home. One evening, I overheard them arguing in their room, and Mark's voice was sharp. She's just being difficult, Sarah. She has plenty of money, she's just hoarding it. My heart shattered. Hoarding it after everything I'd done. The day before their trip, I went to the grocery store. I bought enough for myself for 2 weeks, mostly canned goods and some bread. I didn't buy anything extra for them, as they hadn't given me any money, and I simply didn't have it. When I got back, Mark was furious. Where's our food, Mom? We need snacks for the trip and stuff for when we get back. I explained calmly that I only bought what I could afford for myself, and that they hadn't contributed anything. That's when it happened. His eyes narrowed, and a cruel smirk spread across his face. Fine, Mom. You want to play it that way. 2 can play that game. I didn't understand what he meant until the next morning. I woke up to the sound of suitcases being dragged down the stairs. I went to say goodbye, hoping for some semblance of affection, but he just glared at me. As he walked out the door, he turned back, his voice dripping with venom. You're gonna rot here. Then the click of the lock, the sound of the car starting, and then silence. I walked to the door, tried the handle. It was locked from the outside. Panic began to set in. I called his phone, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried Sarah's, same thing. I was trapped, alone in my own house. I checked the fridge. It was almost empty. They had eaten everything I had bought for the week, leaving only a few expired condiments and a half-empty carton of milk. My grocery bag from the day before was gone. They had taken my food. My heart pounded in my chest. This wasn't just neglect. This was intentional. This was calculated. The first day was a blur of disbelief and growing fear. I had a few apples and some stale crackers hidden away. I rationed them carefully, trying to conserve every crumb. I tried to open the windows, but they were all latched and secured from the outside. The back door, too. My phone was dead, I realized, forgotten to charge it in the shock. My landline, a relic I barely used, was disconnected. They must have done it deliberately. I was truly cut off. The hunger pains started on the second day, a dull ache that grew more intense with each passing hour. I searched every cupboard, every drawer, every forgotten corner of the house. Nothing. They had truly stripped the place bare. I started drinking water from the tap, trying to fill my stomach, but it did little to quell the gnawing emptiness. I felt weak, dizzy, and the fear was a constant companion. What if they never came back? What if something happened to them on their trip? Would anyone even know I was here? I tried shouting, hoping a neighbor might hear me, but my house is set back from the road, and the closest neighbors are a fair distance away. My voice grew hoarse, and my throat ached. Despair began to creep in, a cold, heavy blanket. I sat in the living room, staring out the window, watching the days pass, each one a torment of hunger and loneliness. I felt a profound sense of betrayal, a pain deeper than any physical discomfort. My own son, the child I cherished, the one I protected, had done this to me. By the fourth day, I was truly desperate. I was so weak I could barely stand. My vision blurred, and my head swam. I knew I couldn't last much longer. I was going to die here, in my own home, at the hands of my own son. The thought fueled a desperate anger, a simmering rage that cut through the haze of hunger. I wouldn't let him win. I wouldn't die like this. I forced myself to think, to analyze my surroundings. There had to be a way out. I crawled to the kitchen, my body screaming in protest. I remembered the old emergency key hidden behind a loose brick by the back door, a relic from a time when neighbors would check on each other. My son, in his arrogance, must have forgotten about it. With trembling hands, I reached for the brick, feeling for the cold metal. It was still there, a small, rusty key, but a key nonetheless. It took me ages to get the key into the lock, my hands shaking so violently I thought I'd drop it. But finally, with a click, the lock disengaged. I pushed the door open, the fresh air hitting me like a physical blow. I stumbled out, gasping, collapsing onto the grass. The sun was blinding, and I felt a wave of nausea. But I was out. I was free. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. I was weak, starving, and my son had just tried to kill me, effectively. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have gone to the police? Would you have waited for them to come back? Or would you have sought your own form of justice against the monster who called himself your son? I didn't go to the police right away. My first priority was food and water. I dragged myself to the nearest convenience store, a small family-owned place a few blocks away. The owner, Mrs. Henderson, took one look at me and gasped, "My dear, are you all right? You look terrible." I must have been a sight. Gaunt, disheveled, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I broke down, explaining everything between sobs. Mrs. Henderson, a kind soul, immediately gave me a bottle of water and a sandwich, refusing payment. She then helped me contact my best friend, Carol, who lived a few towns over. Carol was horrified. She drove over immediately, took me to her place, and helped me get back on my feet. We called the police. The officers were shocked by my story, but without visible signs of forced entry or physical assault. And with my son being out of the country, it was difficult to press immediate charges. They documented everything, took my statement, and advised me to change the locks and pursue legal action when Mark returned. But legal action felt insufficient. It felt like a slap on the wrist for what he had done. While I was recovering at Carol's, a plan started to form in my mind. A plan fueled by the anger, the pain, and the sheer disbelief of what my son had done. He wanted me to rot in my house. He wanted to starve me, fine, but he wasn't going to get away with it. He was going to learn a lesson he would never forget. I spent the next few days with Carol, regaining my strength and meticulously planning. Carol, initially hesitant, eventually understood my desire for true justice. She saw the pain in my eyes, the trauma I had endured. When Mark and Sarah finally returned from their luxurious vacation, tanned and carefree, they arrived to a very different house than the one they had left. The first thing they noticed was the new locks on the doors. Mark, irritated, fumbled for his keys, then realized they didn't work. He pounded on the door, shouting my name. I was inside, watching them from an upstairs window, a small, grim smile on my face. They couldn't get in. They tried the back door, the windows, but everything was secured. Then I walked out onto the porch, calm and composed. Mark's jaw dropped. "Mom, what is going on? Open the door," he demanded, his voice already rising in anger. Sarah stood silently behind him, her face pale. "What's going on, Mark?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "I think you know exactly what's going on." He started to bluster, to make excuses, but I cut him off. "You locked me in this house. You took my food. You left me to starve. You tried to kill me." The words hung in the air, heavy and accusatory. His face went white. Sarah gasped. He tried to deny it, to say it was a misunderstanding, a joke. A joke. The audacity of it. Joke. I scoffed. "You think nearly starving your mother to death is a joke? Well, I have a joke for you, Mark. This isn't your house anymore, not legally anyway." Their eyes widened. I had spent those days with Carol not just recovering, but consulting with a lawyer. The house, while technically in my name, had been a joint investment with my late husband. With proof of their malicious intent and my son's blatant disregard for my well-being, my lawyer had helped me secure a temporary restraining order and, more importantly, had started the process of legally disowning Mark and Sarah from any future inheritance or claim to the property. It was a messy, complicated legal battle, but the evidence of their abandonment and my subsequent near starvation was a powerful weapon. "You have exactly 1 hour," I said, pointing to the front door, "to gather any personal belongings you can carry. After that, the locks will be changed again, and you will not be permitted back on this property." Mark started yelling, threatening me, but I didn't flinch. "I've already filed a police report, Mark, and I've spoken to a lawyer. If you cause any trouble, if you try to force your way in, you will be arrested. You will have nothing, not a penny from me. Not a roof over your head, nothing." Sarah, who had been silent, finally spoke up, her voice trembling. "Please, Mom, where will we go?" "That, Sarah," I replied, my voice hard, "is no longer my concern. Perhaps you can find another kind, foolish woman to take you in." They stood there for a moment, stunned, then the reality of the situation seemed to sink in. With no other choice, they started packing. I watched them, cold and detached, as they carried their suitcases, their bags, their boxes, out of my house. The house I had worked so hard for. The house they had tried to turn into my tomb. As Mark walked past me for the last time, he muttered something about how I was a horrible mother, how I was selfish. I just looked him dead in the eye and said, "I raised you, Mark. I loved you. I gave you everything, and you repaid me by trying to kill me. You created this monster. Now live with the consequences." They left, and I never saw them again. Oh, I heard things through the grapevine. They struggled, bounced around, and their online business never really took off. Mark tried to fight me in court, to contest the disinheritance, but with the police report and my detailed account of those 2 weeks, his case crumbled. He truly had nothing. It was a devastating outcome, losing my son in such a final way. But I also found a profound sense of peace. I rebuilt my life, secured my finances, and found joy in small things again. I have my friends, my freedom, and my dignity. This whole mess taught me a painful but vital lesson. Love, especially a mother's love, shouldn't be blind. It shouldn't enable cruelty or allow itself to be destroyed by ingratitude. Sometimes the hardest choice is the one that saves you, even if it means cutting ties with those you once held dearest. If you've ever felt trapped, betrayed, or forced to make an impossible decision for your own well-being, then you understand a fraction of what I went through. Like this video if you were on my side, if you think I did what I had to do. Subscribe for more stories like this, stories of resilience and finding strength in the face of unimaginable hardship. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I go too far, or did I simply get the justice I deserved? I'll see you all in the next story.